Good morning, Willow. It's good to be with you. My name's Dave, and I get to be one of the pastors around here, which is such a privilege. And I love celebration of hope at all of our campuses. Everybody watching online, you are joining us in a very special season of our church that we do each year, where we celebrate all the ways that God is working around the world and the ways that we're partnering with those efforts. And this is a season where, you know, I have many times gone to church, but celebration of hope invites us to be the church. It invites us to participate. It invites us to be a part of what's going on. And it started last week. Sean got up and talked to us about Nehemiah and how Nehemiah really in that first chapter, he didn't really know what was going on in Jerusalem, or if he did know, it was sort of a knowledge up here, but it hadn't made its way really here. And when he got updated with what was going on, maybe he hadn't seen those people, maybe never traveled to that land, but at some point it made the trek from here to here, and it had to do with this moment where he is getting updated on what's going on, and he decides he's going to pray and he's going to fast. And so Sean invited us as a church to pray and fast. It's one of the ways that we were invited to participate last week. And so let me ask you, how did it go? How did your prayers go? How did your fasting go? You know, at my house, Rachel, my wife, decided she was gonna fast from Instagram, which meant that I spent all week on my phone around here going like, oh wow, Instagram is blowing up right now. There's amazing things happening, you know, or I would just get the phone out and just be like, whoa, or start laughing and that sort of thing, just kind of get it. But here's the thing. Her fasting worked because we were one of the families that was asked to give first. And so Rachel and I were participating, trying to figure out, you know, what are we going to give? And it turns out that she's more generous than I am. So we were just so excited to be a part of that. And I just want to say thank you to all of those families who went first to kind of inspire the rest of the church. So we get to participate by prayer and fasting. We get to participate today at some of our campuses right after service. Some of our campuses are starting tonight, but today we get to participate by packing 1 million seeds. What an audacious goal. 1 million seed packs to go around the world. And next week, to try and raise in one offering $1 million. No wonder we're starting with prayer. We're asking God to change our hearts, to help knowledge that we have about what's going on around the world that's happening out there to happen in here. All right, well, I'm in chapter 2 of Nehemiah today, and it starts off this way. In the month of Nisan. Well, we know, how long has Nehemiah been praying? Well, we know because of that little detail, he's been praying and fasting for 4 months. And what I want to do today is I want to talk a little bit about how prayer changes us. What I want to do is talk about some of the ways that I see Nehemiah overcoming some of the obstacles that he had to accomplishing this great task that God had put before him. And so in the month of Nisan, he's been praying for 4 months. In the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, it says, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and I gave it to the king. Had I not been sad in his presence before? So the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of heart. And then he says, and I was very much afraid. So we see that he's been praying about what's been happening back in Jerusalem, that the walls lie in ruin, and it's starting to burden him over the course of this 4 months. And now he is in front of the king, and the king notices that he is sad. And when the king notices that he is sad, it makes Nehemiah afraid. Now, we don't know exactly what he is afraid of, but we can make some good guesses. It was actually illegal to be downcast in the presence of King Artaxerxes, because he wanted to believe that being in his presence would so delight everyone around him that if anybody was sad around him, it was actually illegal and punishable by death. And so in this moment, as the king notices that he is sad and leans in and goes, "Are you sad?" That probably made Nehemiah go, "Whoa, this is a problem." So maybe he was nervous about that, afraid about that. Maybe he was afraid because what he was about to do, what he was praying for was to get up enough courage to come to the king and say, I really need your help in gathering resources, and I need your support to be able to basically go and resource and build a rival nation. He could have been charged with treason, which is, of course, punishable by death as well. We don't know exactly why he was so afraid. Maybe one of those reasons. But it occurs to me that maybe he's afraid just because what if the king says yes? What if this big adventure, this big thing, this big goal that he's about to vision cast to the king and then vision cast to the people of Jerusalem, what if the king says yes and now he's actually the one that's gonna be going and casting that vision? Do you think he might just be afraid to fail? Have you ever gotten the big job and been so excited about the big job, but then you show up on the first day and go, "Oh my goodness." Or did you get into that college that you wanted to get into and think, "Man, I'm so excited about this," but then the weight, the gravity of what you've just taken on kind of presses down on your shoulders, and maybe that's what he's afraid of. We don't know. But at some point, he overcomes the fear. If we're gonna make a difference in this world, we have to overcome fear as well. Because for us, some of us are afraid of failure. Some of us are afraid of the way the relationships in our lives are trending. Some of us are watching our kids grow up and they're leaving our homes and we're watching decisions they make and it's making us terrified. Sometimes we're afraid that, man, you think about raising money or giving money to some mission around the world. Sometimes we're afraid, is there gonna be enough resources for us to pay the rent and to pay the bills? You know, I was going down the road a few years back, and is that, normal thing? You look at the rearview mirror and you see the blue and red lights. Anybody else had that experience? And, so we do the thing, we pull over, and knock on the window goes down, license and registration, and the police officer goes back to his car. Now let me ask you, in that moment when that's happened to you, would you describe your feelings as peace and joy and contentment? Well, I'm here to tell you, I had absolute calm and peace. I wasn't afraid at all because my mother-in-law was driving the car. And I find that when she was driving the car, it just didn't bother me at all, Now, here's why I tell you that, because I honestly have thought about that moment multiple times. Because there are some times that I come to church, or I've been leading, or I have tasks that I have to do, or things that I'm responsible for, and there's sometimes that I get afraid because I go, wow, what if I fail, or what if this doesn't work, or what if it goes this way or that way, and I start to get afraid, and I wonder if God sometimes doesn't look down at us and go, hey, whoever told you were even driving the car? Whoever invited you to be the one in the driver's seat? Our God is to be the one that is in charge. We are along for the ride, and praise God that we get to be in the car with him, but he is the one. And once I realize that, well, then the pressure's off. Then I start dreaming dreams with God-sized dreams. Then I start making plans with God-sized plans in mind. Then I begin to think about, budgets with God's bank account, because it's his thing, not my thing. I think one of the most freeing things about realizing that everything that we have is his, it comes from him, that even our money is God's, and that we're just to manage that money, is that now I'm free to sort of manage his money open-handedly. And if I can manage it open-handedly, trusting him, well, he can take some out because I'm not clenching on so hard. If there are people around the world that need some of those resources, some of his kids that need those resources, well, then I'm holding it like this. He can take it, but he can also bless me as well. It's his. And maybe one of the things that we're praying for is that God would help us to overcome the fear we have when it comes to participating in the mission of celebration of hope. Let's keep going. In verse 3, he says, "But I said to the king." So he overcomes his fear and he says to the king, "May the king live forever." He's kind of buttering the king up there a little bit. He's not dumb, is he? "May the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins and its gates have been destroyed by fire?" As Sean pointed this out last week, Nehemiah had likely never been to Jerusalem. He'd never met the people of Jerusalem. And yet he'd been praying these 4 months, and something is changing in his heart. So that when he describes Jerusalem to the king, he says, the land of my ancestors. He's basically saying, this is my family. So something has changed in his heart. He is overcoming the apathy that he once had about that situation over there with those nameless, faceless people that I have never met. And he is now taking this sort of ownership where he's going, man, we've got to do something about this because that's my family. It is so easy for some of us in this church who have maybe grown up in the U.S., maybe you're second, third, fourth generation immigrant family, and you've just always grown up in the U.S., it's so easy for us to just ignore the needs around the world. Now, one of the things I love about our church is how many first-generation folks, how many immigrants that we have. I mean, we have Kenyan brothers and sisters here. We have Salvadorian brothers and sisters here. We have Jordanians and Indians and Ukrainians are all, part of this family. So for you, it's not hard for you to think about your brothers and your sisters and your family around the world. But for those of us who have grown up just in the U.S. and the Midwest, haven't done a lot of traveling, for some of us, it's easy to ignore what's going on around the world. Let me ask you, how would that change if it was actually your brother or sister or a member of your family? Some of you are like, well, which family member are we talking about? But think about that. What if it was your sister who had to spend over half of her day walking to gather water to bring it back home for the family, and therefore couldn't be involved in school, and therefore didn't have much hope for the future? What if it was your brother who was trying to go to school and was getting shot, his classroom was getting shot up in the Middle East, and he's running for his life and trying to get to some of these schools in Jordan that we're helping with? If it was your brother and sister, things change in your perspective. And so part of what we do with COH is we try to bring that awareness to us who sometimes it's easy to ignore. Now, we want to feel like family, and I mentioned family. I would like to invite some of my brothers to the stage. Now, I say my brother, he's actually my son. This is Joe Dummitt, my son. Everybody clap for Joe. Good to see you. And then this is David Temfwe, and David is one of our partner in Zambia at the Jubilee Centre, works with about 350 churches over there. When you guys are packing seeds, they're gonna go over to the Jubilee Centre, and David's gonna distribute those and work with those. And my son, the reason Joe's up here is because Joe got to travel last summer with one of our serving teams over to Zambia and meet him, and so I thought I'd have Joe come and help me do this interview a little bit. So first, let's let you ask the first question.
All right. So the first question I would ask is, what are some things you would like people to know about your Zambian community and the people there, and what are some things that you love about it?
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I do consider Willow Creek my home in a way because I spent 4 years at Moody Bible Institute downtown Chicago, and while I was there, I would attend the downtown Chicago Willow campus, and then I would also frequent this campus as well. So every time I come back, it feels like I'm just reconciling with a family that is just a little bit distant. So it's good to see you guys again. But Zambia, I'm sure many of you might have heard of it, but don't know too much about it. And I think one of the reasons for that is because we're such a peaceful country that we just don't make the news. So no one really knows knows what's going on. But I think one of the cool things about my country is, first of all, we have one of the 7 wonders of the world, which is Victoria Falls, the largest waterfall in the world. And that's really exciting for me. But I think it's the people that make our country. We're known as being just welcoming, warm, and I'm sure Joe can attest to that reality. And one example of this is in 1964, when we gained independence from the British, our president, Kaunda, would still send help to the other countries around us who hadn't gotten independence yet. And I remember when my dad would tell me these stories as a kid, I would wonder why we needed to do that. And I think it's just the idea of knowing that even if you don't have much, there's still so much more you can give other people. And I think that's a heart that we as a community have, and that's something that within the churches that we work with and within my own life, I've seen that replicated multiple times. So it is that idea of community and love and just being there for a brother or a sister who might be going through something that you can help out with.
Love that. Thank you. So we talked about the fact that you're working with the Jubilee Centre, but the Jubilee Centre works with 350 or so churches in Zambia. How are you seeing God move in those churches?
Yeah. So right now, I would say within the 350 churches we have, the one word I would use is holistic ministry. That's one way that we're really expressing God's love. So we're working in the 4 broken relationships. That's the broken relationship between God, self, others, and creation. And I would zero in on creation because that's something that we are starting to understand how we treat the earth is how the earth is going to treat us in return. And so just the idea of each facet of our lives as individuals, as well as the church, comes under the lordship of Jesus Christ, and he cares absolutely about every facet of our existence. And we're trying to teach and train pastors to understand this, as well as to help their congregations understand this, so that they know for sure that Christ is Lord of not only their spiritual lives, but also their physical lives. And I think that's something that over the past 5 or so years we've been able to really instill in the pastors that are working with us in our networks.
Love that.
Yeah. When I was in Zambia, I noticed that farming was super important for all the communities, and I would ask, what are some challenges that farmers go through, and how is the Jubilee Centre helping counteract those problems?
So our main economic export in Zambia is copper. So at state level, we do export unprocessed copper, which does sustain us in that regard. But on an independent level, I would say a majority of people in the country are farmers. Whether you work in a bank or you, like even on my staff, I would say about 80% of us are still farming, even though we do have 9 to 5s. And the simple reason is because it's really expensive to buy food, because most of our supermarkets are owned by foreign conglomerates. And so with inflation, people just can't afford to buy food from the grocery store. So farming is a way that we subsidize our existence, and it's a way that we're able to put food on the table for our families. And that's something that we've really become good at. But there are challenges in the sense that the way we farm right now isn't sustainable. Because one thing is the government does subsidize chemical fertilizer. So every year they distribute thousands of bags of fertilizer to different folks within the communities. But what that does is it doesn't make the soil sustainable for the future generations that are coming. So one thing that we're trying to do is basically teach how to farm sustainably. We call it farming God's way. And that's where the broken relationship between man and creation comes in, is because if you don't understand how the earth is supposed to be treated, you won't get the most from it, and you won't be given the yields that Christ would like you to have. So it's helping people understand how different facets of the soil and the ecosystems under it will eventually support the people above the soil. That happens to be us. So we're trying to teach sustainable farming methods to different farmers and help them just understand how their faith connects to the land that they're working on.
Love that. You were describing earlier when we were talking in the back that Zambia is going through a pretty serious drought right now. And that because of the way that you're training farmers, you're actually seeing your farming is producing more crops than those just 10, 20 feet away because of the education that you're providing for people.
Absolutely. So we have a drought that's currently going on. That's probably the biggest challenge that we're facing right now. Is I think the last drought we had was in 1996. I was only 6 years old at the time. I can barely remember it. But this is a far much worse one. I had my in-laws visit during this period, and I was really excited for them to experience the rainy season, but it just was non-existent. I think it rained once during the 3 weeks that they were there. So that significantly impacts the ability for farmers to grow crops. But there's an organization we're partnering with through Willow Creek that's helping us understand how exactly to plant drought-resistant crops, how intercropping helps, and how there's so many ways and so many strategies as far as even water harvesting and things of that nature, that if our farmers learn and understand, they can actually yield much better results than they would. So even right now, one thing that we're seeing is if one of our farmers is in our network and their neighbor isn't, you can easily see the difference in the size of their crops, the health of their crops, and just how well, even in a drought season, things can still grow. And that just reminds us of who God is even when all the things that look like they're surrounding you are collapsing right in front of your face, He still gives hope in that situation. And that's what you guys are doing through your church. Through your support, we're able to see God's love through being able to survive a drought to the extent that we are right now.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so we're going to try and mobilize about 8,000 people to pack 1 million seed packs, and talk to us a little bit about the impact of that in the work that you do.
So in the States, your typical meals will consist of protein, like animal-based protein, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But in my country, most people can't afford to keep animals, let alone purchase them from the store, because a lot of the animal products you buy from the store are imported, once again, from other countries. So many people rely solely on vegetables. So your kids might look at broccoli as a side dish and are like, I don't want to eat that. But for us, that is the main meal. It is that vegetable. So most people will have maize. That's our main crop that we grow, and then they'll have a vegetable of some sort, which a lot of it comes from the seeds that you pack. So you're not just sending side dishes for people. You're sending actual meals for human beings that are literally going to carry them through the rest of the year. So the strategies that are being used to farm are putting food on the table of many, many farmers, church leaders, young people. And you'll find that even it affects kids who are going to school. It's difficult to concentrate if you haven't had a meal, and that's the vegetables that you're seeing packed. It's difficult for someone to go to a 9-to-5 job without food, and those are the seeds that you're packing. So I think it's such a direct representation of the relationship that you and us have as Willow and Jubilee Centre, is just being able to provide for the main source of food for many, many Zambians within our community.
Love it.
In the Jubilee Center's efforts to impact your communities, what role has the local church played in those efforts?
So the local church in Zambia might look a little bit different than here. So in 1991, our president Chiluba declared Zambia a Christian nation. And after that, you could see how many people began to look at the church as the sole authority in their lives. So when pastors understand the role of the church in the community, that is when communities thrive. That is when people also understand exactly what their role is in the church. But more importantly, it's a place where people come for training. It's a place where people come for support. There's some churches that actually provide land for people to farm on. And another way is water. We've drilled multiple different boreholes in different locations in our country as a result of the partnership we have with you. So people are able to come straight to the church as a source of water. So it's the living embodiment of Christ, in the sense that when people go to church, they don't just go for the word, but they go for sustenance, they go for existence, they go for life. And so not only is the physicality provided, but it's also just knowing that this is the authority within our community, that you go for safety, for support, for provision. And so it's literally, the church is a do or die kind of operation in my country.
So good. All right. What sorts of things are you dreaming about as you look toward the future, as you think about leading with Jubilee? What are some of the ways you are innovating and thinking about the future?
I'll share a couple with you. One program we have, which is a few years old, is called Junior Parliament. And the idea is getting young people within our community who are between the ages of, let's say 12 and 18 years old, to be trained by different people from different walks of life within either the government or lawyers and things like that, in order for them to understand what governance looks like, especially for those young people who want to get involved in government. But also, just from a leadership perspective, it helps young people understand their role in the community, but also how policy affects a lot of livelihoods of human beings. So when people start learning that at a very young age, it helps them know that they actually can be involved in politics. And one thing that we've been able to see as a direct result of this is young people will have debates where they invite public officials to come and attend these debates, and they'll ask them questions about what their goal is for their community. We voted on this issue, but you haven't actualized it. And so that's one area that we're really focusing on, is how to grow leadership from a very young age and inspire young people. But secondly, the unemployment rate in Zambia is really, really high. And so young people just might have degrees but don't have anywhere to take them because there's no industries for those degrees. So we're finding that we need to send young people back to the land. A lot of young people just don't know how to farm because in the past we've been taught if you can get a degree, you can get employed, and that's good. But we're finding that there just aren't any jobs available, and so we're trying to help young people understand farming is the one way that you can, one, support your family, but two, the excess that you get, you can actually sell. And the biggest gap is just knowledge. It's people not knowing how to farm, because in the past, like I said, we've had a situation where we've been given fertilizer by the government and we've been taught this is the one way you can farm. But we're trying to teach how to grow your own compost, how to grow organically, how to use the earth to support you in a way. And so that just teaching young people from a very young age how to rehabilitate the soil that's been destroyed over the time is going to empower us significantly. And another thing is just women, is helping women understand farming strategies as well, because they're the ones who teach young people, and that means the next generation is going to learn how to farm sustainably. And we feel like finally Zambia will become the breadbasket that it used to be back in the 60s and 70s, once people do understand how to farm sustainably and how that impacts the lives of every individual in our country.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing some of these thoughts. And I would ask, how can our church best help you in your efforts to impact your community?
So when I was at Moody, every week we had something called Practical Christian Ministry, PCM, and the idea was to get us onto the mission field really early. So it's to understand what things people are dealing with in Chicago. And so I'd been exposed to so many different types of poverty within your country. And when I say I understand that it's hard sometimes to give to people you don't know because there's so many needs around you, I get that. And I saw it firsthand for 4 years. And I know it can be difficult sometimes to think of things that you can't see because there's so many immediate needs around you. But similar to how Zambia was in '64 when we gained independence, we also were frustrated with our leader who was sending resources we needed out to other countries who needed them. But over time, we began to understand the relationships that our country formed with these other countries around are still sustained today. That's why we're such a friendly country, is because we first understood what our role was and how to give. And there's one thing that I've come to understand is if the Lord gives you a vision, even if it looks insane, there's a way He's going to support it. He's going to provide what's needed for that vision to be actualized. So for those of you that are wondering why Celebration of Hope is such a big deal, it's because your church has a vision to support multiple different people around the world, and you have the capacity to, because God provides the capacity. So I think for us and for me today, the one way that you can help is through seed packing. it's not just about the physical seeds that you're sending, but you're sending a message to the Zambian people of saying, when we pack these seeds, we're saying that God loves you through these seeds. We're saying that people who haven't seen you, people who haven't experienced your existence, people who haven't understood what you go through on a day-to-day basis, still are trusting God, are being obedient to the Lord, and are still sending multiple different resources to you that will for sure impact lives, but also just transform people's understanding of what the global church is and God's love for his people. And I think that can be actualized by you guys just getting into those rooms and packing seeds and just showing the love of God to the Zambian people through that. So please, if you have time, or even if you don't, pack some seeds.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, let's do this. One more question, because here's what we find is that as we try and obey God in serving our brothers and sisters, it actually helps transform our hearts as well. And so I want to ask Joe, as you went over to Zambia to learn and to serve and to help, how did that impact you?
I think that I was opened up to the fact that God can impact us in many different ways that we might not have known about before doing something like that. And so I think through that idea, I was shown that, and through the people in Zambia, they were able to show me through that new thinking that I can impact my own community the way that they did with their challenges and the things that they had to go through in order to help the people around them, that I should be able to do the same thing as well.
Awesome, awesome. Well, yeah. So I just want to say, David, as the pastor of this church, we thank you for the partnership, but also as a dad, thank you for the partnership. We count you as family, brother. So thank you so much for being here.
Well.
Appreciate you. Good job. Give it up for him, everybody. Thank you. All right. So one of the things we want to do is overcome fear. We want to overcome this idea of, apathy, where it feels like, oh, these people are so far away, we don't know them. But no, they are family. That's what prayer does. It helps us to get in line with the heart of God. And then in verse 4, it says, "Then the king said to me, 'What is it that you want?'" Nehemiah, what is it that you want? How do you want to help? How can I help you help? What is it that you want? And then I prayed to the God of heaven. Isn't it good that we have God to go to for wisdom? When we have big initiatives, when we have big goals, when we have big responsibilities in our lives, we have a God that we can go to and say, hey, what is it that we need to do? How should we help? What is the best way forward? Whether we're parents, or whether we're trying to run a business, or whether we're trying to resolve conflict in relationships, God, I want your wisdom to help us with this. And it is a very important thing that our prayer and going to God helps us overcome questions like that when it comes to serving people around the world as well. God, what is the best way that we can help? Because sometimes we end up trying to serve somebody without asking that question and end up not helping them as much as we could help them. There's a man by the name of Michael Frost was telling the story where a missionary group was going around the world, walked into a village and said, hey, we have resources to help. We have labor and we have money, and so what can we do for you? We can build a clinic, we can build a school, what would you like? And the village said, we would like you to help us get a mailbox. And Michael kind of stepped back, the team just kind of stepped back and said, well, hold on a second, you didn't hear me correctly. We've got a lot of dollars, we've got a lot of help. We could build you a clinic, we could build you a school. What do you mean you just want us to build you a mailbox? Well, turns out that the people said, listen, you could build us a school, but we wouldn't have the money to run the school. You could build us a clinic, but we wouldn't have the money to run the clinic. But in our country, as soon as a village has a zip code, as soon as a village has a mailbox, then our country considers us a legit place, a legit zip code, and our country then releases resources the social safety net, the money. And so if you could get us a mailbox, that is what would actually help us. It's important for us to make sure that we're asking the question, God, what is it that actually helps in this circumstance? And maybe some of you have questions when you think about COH. Where does all the money go? How is it spent? And I think it's important that we answer those questions. Well, I'm here to tell you 100% of the money that you give goes directly to resource our global partnerships. Administrative costs, salaries, things like that. There is no, skimming off the top or anything like that. You give a dollar goes to make an impact. And then what about seed packing? Because I have a little confession to make. I got here 4 years ago, and I saw that we did seed packing, and I thought, well, that's really a nice thing. However, it seemed a little inefficient to me. And I wondered, wouldn't it be a lot cheaper for us just to send the money over and let them buy the seeds over there? It seemed like it'd be more expensive for us to buy the seeds here and then ship it over there. It just didn't seem efficient to me. And I'm here to tell you, I love our team. They informed me that it is 90% less expensive to do it the way we do it. Our seeds are less expensive, even to ship it over, it's less expensive than what they get over there. And the seeds that we send are seeds that actually produce fruit or produce crops and then multiply themselves. They produce other seeds. The seeds that David is able to get from his own government, they genetically modify the seeds so that they don't produce new seeds, so that the people have to keep coming back to the company, the government, to get those seeds. And so the way that we're doing seed packing is the best use of our dollars and time. I love knowing that if I give a dollar, it is gonna make the impact that I wanted to give. And so as you think through, man, if I give this, is it gonna make an impact? I'm here to tell you, it will make the impact. If you give $5, it irrigates one banana plant, and that will generate 5 times that in revenue. If you give $7, it enrolls an adult in a literacy class in India, which provides new employment opportunities. Just imagine opening up someone's future because $7 gave them a literacy class. $16.50 provides food, clothing, and other resources for a refugee family for 1 month. $35 trains a farmer in Zambia in sustainable farming practices, which mean a lot now that the drought is hitting. $300 covers the cost of one student to be able to attend one of the schools in Jordan for a full year. $500 provides a classroom of 16 children with what they need for education in Costa Rica. And $7,300 drills one of those deep wells that provides for over 2,600 people with piped clean water. And I want to answer those questions for you because I don't want anything stopping you from making an impact to our brothers and sisters around the world. Nehemiah does one thing after he asks questions, after he prays and asks for wisdom. In verse 5 it says, "And I answered the king, if it pleases the king and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried so that I can rebuild it." And then the king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked me, "How long will your journey take and when will you get back?" It pleased the king to send me. Apparently he answered well. It pleased the king to send me. And here it is. So I set a time. So I set a time. And folks, here's what I know about you. You want to help. You are good people. The truth is that if you got to sit after church today and have lunch with David, and David said, "Hey, I've got a brother and sister over here for $35 you can train," you'd be like, "Absolutely, let's make this happen." And for so many of us, we're gonna walk out of here inspired and excited, but here's what else happens. When we roll out of here, we're gonna go grab lunch, and we're gonna start thinking about the groceries that we need to pick up on the way home. And then we're gonna start thinking about soccer pickup schedules and who's gonna handle Tuesday and who's gonna handle Wednesday. And then we're gonna start thinking about work meetings that we have and goals that need to happen and phone calls that we need to make. And if we're not intentional, it is just way too easy for us to have the best intentions, but not follow through. Guys, Nehemiah was the same. After this conversation with the king, he had to go back to his palace duties, but he overcomes the busyness of his life by setting a time. And so here's what I'd like to do, if you'll just indulge me. At all of our campuses, would you just get out your phone right now? Just grab your phone right now at all of our campuses. I'll trust you're not making a phone call or checking your socials. And I would love for you to set an alarm on your phone at 2:06 p.m. for every day this week. Nehemiah 2:06 is when he set a time. And so will you set an alarm for 2:06 p.m.? Please do p.m. and not a.m. because your spouse will call me angry if you do a.m. So 2:06 p.m. And here's what I'd love to invite us to do. Just like we prayed last week, I'd like you to pray this week and say, God, what does a sacrificial gift to my brothers and sisters around the world look like? And just ask God to tell you. Every time that alarm goes off, thousands of us around Chicagoland just praying, God, what is it that you're calling me to do? And then the other thing I would like you to do is when that alarm goes off, have I signed up to pack some seeds? Have I signed up to pack some seeds? And if you will do that this week, I really believe that we will see 1 million seed packs packed and we will raise $1 million for our folks around the world. Does that sound good? Sound good? I told you, we're not just going to church today, we're gonna be the church today. And by the way, if it inspires you at all, our kids got together last week and started giving to COH already. They are on track, David. They are on track to sponsor over 100 farmers in Zambia. That's just with our kids raising money this week. And they are today packing seeds right now. So our kids are leading the way, which I think is so amazing. Will you pray with me to close out? Lord, we love you. Thank you for this opportunity to be the church. To be the church, Lord, and not just go to church. Lord, I do ask a bold prayer. Sean last week talked about us praying bold prayers. In particular, the bold prayer I'm praying. Lord, would you help us? 8,000 of us strong to pack 1 million seed packs. Because that 1 million is gonna multiply in amazing ways around the world. And then Father, for the sake of our partners in India, El Salvador, Costa Rica, in Africa, Zambia, Lord, our partners all over the world, I pray that you would help us to blow away the goal of $1 million next week. God, I believe that we can. Help us to care. Transform our hearts and our minds. Don't let us slip into fear or apathy. Lord, let us not become so busy with the day-to-day life that we show up at church next week, not having prepared to give. Lord, I'm asking you to do a miracle in this place, and I'm asking in the strong name of Jesus. And all God's people said, amen.